Chief Product Officer at Bliss, and Joe McKenna, the Executive Director of Performance Product at TMPM.
Yeah, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Very disconcerting not being able to hear myself. Hopefully you can all hear me. Great. We'll get cracking. So we're going to start by going a little bit off piece. Technically, this is all Joe's fault and responsibility, the next 2 or 3 slides, because it was his idea. But we're going to talk about the rule of threes. And before we talk about measurement, advertising, I wondered if any of you recognize this very famous rule of three. If anybody watches Bear Grylls' survival tactics, you can only survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So useful to remember in case you do ever get stranded on a desert island. Another reasonably well-known rule of three. Just wanted an excuse to use the slide. Thank you, yeah. Anyone know what this one is? Does it trigger anyone who's got dogs or adopted a dog? Apparently, when you adopt a new or rehome a rescue dog, it takes 3 days for the dog to decompress, 3 weeks for the dog to learn your routine, 3 months to feel safe at home. So the rule of three is handy. It's helpful for remembering things that you need a bit of structure to. So we've applied that, or Joe and Group M have applied it, but I've shamelessly stolen it for this, to measurement in advertising. I don't think there is one golden answer to measurement. There is not one perfect way to measure anything, but what I think there needs to be is an understanding that different data sets can be used for different things and have different roles to play. On the very left-hand side, for a 3-minute window, there are data sets like clicks, video complete, CPAs, online conversions. They've existed in the digital ecosystem for years, and they are very valuable and they are very useful for a very specific thing, for real-time optimization, for making decisions, feeding into machine learning algorithms, etc. On the right-hand side, I'm generalizing, of course, but we've got things like MMM modeling, so modeling that the advertisers can do on their side that give them a really broad understanding on whether or not their marketing strategies are shifting the behavior or the products for their product and brand. Of course, the downside of that is it's heavy lifting, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money to do it. So what is this holy grail middle ground that we want to talk about today? It's that 3-week window where geography, or we believe, and we're going to defend today why we think geography, is a really useful tactic to help give you a snapshot into what's happening in terms of incrementality across your audience or across your promotion, but with a short enough time window that you can use that information to do something with it and not have to wait a really long time. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is try and defend why incrementality over a 3-week period cannot be measured anymore by using personal data, especially in Europe, more so in Europe than in any other market. Data landscape, I saw a couple of presentations on this earlier, is deeply, deeply fragmented, and it has been for a very, very long time. I wanted to put one sort of real life example together. So think of yourself as a person. Every single one of you is one of these persons. You might have 2 email addresses, you might have more. My CTO at work tells me he has 7. I have absolutely no idea why he has 7. Suspiciously high number of emails, but there we go. But let's say you've got 2, your work email and your personal email. You might then have a plethora of devices, so a phone, an iPad, a laptop, a TV. You might use the same TV or the same iPhone for work, and it varies per person. But then you've multiplied the number of identities online up until 8 at this point. Then you get down to all of the things you do on those devices. And you might read The Guardian, you might play Angry Birds, you might listen to Spotify, you might watch ITV. All of these different publishers have different opt-in regulations, and you as a user can change how you allow them to use your personal data. So suddenly, a single person using their 2 emails, their 4 devices, and the thousands, maybe it's in the tens, of publishers that you consume or you interact with have created a disparate number of identities online. But that's not really the end of that. When you get to the cookies, the IDs, the alternative IDs, the unified IDs, whatever it might be at the end that represent that audience, more than 50% of European traffic or bid opportunities now have no IDs attached to them at all. That's because we're opting out. We don't want to be tracked around the internet by a pair of trainers for 3 months just because we once were curious and clicked on an Instagram ad, right? We are opting and choosing not to allow that. So some data, some publishers, there are identifiers that can be used, but they're just really disparate. There's a lot of blank data sets, and it's very, very difficult, borderline impossible, to connect cookie B, cookie F, IDE, alternative IDD together. So it's a challenge, it's a huge problem, and it sort of explains to you why that data can't be used. Now I wanted to put it into a real life example, so theoretical example. Imagine that you are Uber Eats and you are trying to grow market share against Deliveroo. So you're going head to head, battling for an audience to try and get them to download your app and start using your product more. Now let's say you've done a lot of work and you have identified your perfect audience, and it's James, this guy, James. You've already identified who he is and you've worked out where you want to activate to reach James. Now, throughout the day, James does a lot of different things and he interacts with all his phones and devices and his different publishers in a different way. This is a very simplified view of James, I acknowledge that in advance. Let's say first thing he does is he wakes up and he opens his phone and he reads The Guardian. So Uber Eats see that as an opportunity to serve an ad to him, and by chance he's opted in to sharing his personal data on The Guardian. So ID 101 gets registered against that event. Uber Eats served an ad, ID 101 saw the ad. Then he goes to the gym and he listens to digital radio when he's working out. Deliveroo see that opportunity and they serve him an ad then. But there's no identifier attached to that because audio often comes without identifiers because of challenges gathering consent. Okay, next, he's walking to work. He walks past a digital out-of-home site owned by JCDecaux, and Deliveroo see another opportunity to serve an ad to him there. Of course, by the way advertising works is nowhere near this personal and segmented. It's just an example I wanted to walk through. No ID is attached to that. It's impossible to collect the IDs of the devices around a mobile an out-of-home device. So again, nobody knows. There's no record of that event happening against an identifier. At lunchtime, he decides to scroll through celebrity gossip videos on the Daily Mail. He's got a cookie now, because again, he's opted in on this time, but he's on a different device, so it's completely different to the one that he was used earlier, and an Uber Eats ad is served to him. Then he goes home in the evening, decides to catch up on Love Island. What a guy. He sounds a lot like me, actually, apart from the gym bit. Watches Discovery, and Deliveroo decide, right, we're going to serve an ad now. And that, again, your TV has a completely different identifier, knows nothing about your phone, knows nothing about your laptop. That is what a day in the life of James looks like in terms of serving him an ad on and trying to track the identifiers he was exposed to. Now, let's assume, in a perfect world, it's worked. James has seen the Uber Eats ad, he's seen a few Deliveroo ads, and it's got to him. And at the end of the day, he gets up and he gets his phone out and he orders an Uber Eats. It's gone into his head and he needs to have a pizza from them now. They've won. They've literally won the battle. It's what every CMO's dream is, to win the head-to-head battle and convert somebody. But when that event takes place, what Uber track or collect will be something like a customer name and address and an email. No digital identifiers that can be tied back. That means that success, trying to track it or trying to attach it to this series of events that happened, is completely impossible. It's an unattributable sales event, which is every marketer's worst nightmare, because they've done their bloody job, you've done the hard work, and you've converted him, and you have no way of knowing it. So this is sort of the flaw in this space. Now let's flip a little bit. So, in an ID world, as I kind of showed you theoretically, you try to attribute an ID to every action and connect them up. In a geographic world, and geography as it is today, not as it was sort of 10, 15 years ago, you try to attribute an action to a consumer's home area and use where they live, where they work, how they travel, as a piece of data that you connect people together with. So let's replay James's day, but let's look at it through geography rather than identity. Let's go back in time. We're having a Groundhog Day moment. Flip him in upside down, which made me dizzy when I first saw it, sorry. This time, he goes through the same experience. He reads The Guardian first thing, and we know that he lives in M14 as a home area, zip code. Again, when he's in his gym, he's just around the corner, we know he's still in M14. Travels to work, sees an ad, we know that people that commute in areas or commute around M1 happen to live or are likely to live in M14 through technologies that I will explain a little bit in a minute. Same happens when he's at work, so he's browsing. We know that event's happened in M1, but we've made some connections that we know that people that browse Daily Mail in M1 are likely to also live in M14. We can connect that event back. And last but not least, he's at home watching his telly, and we know that event has happened in M14. This kind of aggregated home data is much easier to access and work with because it's not subject to the same privacy restrictions that those personal identifiers are. We have technology at Bliss, and there is plenty of really exciting innovation happening around geotechnology, needing to do some heavy lifting and some clever sort of machine learning to connect all of these things together. But they let you get to this point. They let you get to the point that when this event happens, this time round, Uber know the customer name, address, email. They know that he lives in M1. The sales event happens in M1. And suddenly we've got this information. Don't know how M21 snuck in there, that's an accident. But we can now connect or attribute the event back to the measurement, the thing that has happened. Now, of course, we're not trying to do this on a single individual level, this is just an example. But the point I wanted to make is that this kind of data and leveraging geographic data gives us the opportunity to do a lot more and open up a lot more measurement opportunities for big brands. So filling in that gap, we believe, or I believe really strongly, that incrementality, trying to measure that short-term incrementality, geo measurement and using geo for creating holdout areas and channel testing areas is an absolute critical key or really useful foundational data set to let you do online and offline attribution, so linking digital advertising with real world behavior, full omnichannel attribution, so understanding the impact of all of the different channels, not just the digital or not just the mobile, and then of course allowing you to get cut through the kind of noisy short-term attention metrics that have a role to play, they're useful, but not exclusively rely on those, and get closer to true product sales, true app interactions if you're Uber, true whatever it might be as another brand. And I think Joe is going to take us through.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm just going to stand on this side, if that's okay, just so I can see the screen. Thank you very much, Amy. So I'm going to take you through how we use the 333 measurement framework at TMPM. And the beauty of it is it really gives that opportunity for advertisers and our clients to understand full funnel measurement at its core. And so what we do is we split the different metrics and the different data sources at the speed that they are available. So as Amy touched on, when we look at 3 seconds, this is all about the data which is readily available after the interaction, after the exposure of the ad, whether that be a click, a view, or even a conversion on site. And this is hugely beneficial for advertisers who want to optimize their activity in real time. However, what it ignores is the nuances of different channels and different environments and the impact that they have on delivering the conversion. From a longer period, we have 3 months. This is where econometrics and MMM comes in, which is hugely valuable for long-term business decisions. However, as Amy mentioned, can often be slow in terms of turning it around and doesn't come at the speed that needed in order to make optimizations in the middle of the campaign. So we look at the 3-week section in terms of incrementality and how we deliver experimentation. Because experimentation is the new best practice. It drives innovation, it drives understanding, and ultimately it drives business growth. Studies show that advertisers who implement rigorous test and learn and experimentation as part of their always-on strategy will improve in their effectiveness by up to 30%. And the trade press and the literature absolutely supports this. And the best example I'm sure most of us will be familiar with is the one at the bottom with regards to Airbnb, who tested switching off their performance activity and only running brand to see how it would impact their performance in terms of an overall business, and it was a huge success. So what this means is that the power of experimentation is the purest form when it comes to incrementality, and that is all about finding how we can identify what has driven intent and what has driven action. So looking at these 3 examples, number 3 is the one that we really want to focus on, and we need to experiment in order to find this out. And that is hugely important for advertisers, it's hugely important for marketers and agencies, because it means you can calibrate your results, optimize your activity, but fundamentally you can tell your clients what has driven the business growth that they are desiring. And so geographical measurement is absolutely crucial in order to be able to prove incrementality. And having the ability to split the country into different postal code sectors, so you can start to test different weightings of channels, different weightings of tactics, all about proving the true impact. And fundamentally, it is the foundation for effective test and experimentation design. So I'm going to touch on an example that we've delivered for TMPM for one of our FMCG clients, who challenged us with understanding how they can drive growth across their existing and future customers. And we call that the movable middle. So what we did is we segmented their customers based on high, medium and low, and then the customers of own brand products in supermarkets and their competitors as well, identifying nine cohorts that we could target. What we then did is we took those 9 cohorts, we overlaid geographical data to identify the higher indexing areas of where they would live, so that we could start to devise how we would deliver addressable media in those different postcodes at different spend weightings. And the results were absolutely fantastic. First of all, we proved that we could increase sales by up to 4% in the areas where we delivered media. We then also proved what spend weighting we need to deliver in certain postal code sectors, and proved that a normal level of investment was more profitable than if we doubled our investment. But fundamentally to the advertiser, the most important thing to them was we were able to prove that there is still headroom in terms of targeting across their most loyal customers. And also if they want to grow market share, the customers that were easiest to convert were the ones who are medium buyers of own brand products. So it was fundamental to the future planning that we deliver for this client and has really become the basis of everything that we do. And it really shows why geo-measurement is absolutely fantastic. And often I feel from an industry perspective, it can be seen as quite basic. However, through the innovation that Bliss have brought, as well as AI and machine learning, it really is the future for effective omnichannel measurement. Thank you.